Hi, everybody.
Hello and welcome, travel advisors, back to sales certification training with Mike Archer. How you doing today, Mike?
Well, I'll let you know in about a half hour. So between your computer glitches and my router issues, hopefully we can actually get through lesson 4 for the second time today. And hopefully with all this, I went to and got all new equipment, so I've got a faster router, and hopefully everything's going to work out okay. So we're going to get through lesson 4 so we can get on to 5, 6, and 7 in the next couple of weeks. So everybody should be on page 16. We are on communication skills. So it's not enough to have this knowledge of behavioral skills or behavioral styles and knowing about backup behavior and versatility stuff if we don't put it into action when we're with our clients. So that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to show you how to put all this stuff into action. And this goes along with Wednesday's training, or whatever day Jose does his trainings on now, and it's still part of his meet and greet and get to know the client. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is over on the left-hand side of page 16, and it's called interpersonal climates. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but interpersonal climates is the relationship that you're trying to establish between your client and yourselves. And essentially, it's nothing more than what type of a climate do you want to create? Well, obviously, we want to create a productive climate. We approve of each other. There's basically 3 kinds. There's the approving kind, the indifferent kind, and the outright hostility kind. And the indifferent kind is, you can tell they're being polite, they're talking to you, but they're not really interested. Their body posture is showing that they're not interested. Their eye contact darts all over the place. It's not very good. You can kind of tell they're lackluster. And then the hostility is, it's an out and out rupture where you get into an argument or they ask you to leave or whatever. But we're going to concentrate on what does it take to make a good interpersonal climate. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create what's called an initial benefit statement. And that's nothing more than letting them know why you're there. Why do you want to talk to them? Your initial benefit statement is simply, and I've written a couple of them down here. And again, in the manual, this is all my language. This is how I talk to people when I was selling. This is the art of selling. The science is I'm giving you the skills. The art is putting it into your own personality so it makes sense to you and it's comfortable for you to work with. I was always a low-key, low-pressure sales guy. And so that's how what my approach is. And so there are 3 elements to these opening statements. They need to be crisp, they need to be clear, and they need to be concise. And you can see what I wrote here. Hi, I'm Mike Archer from Evolution Travel. We're one of the key leaders in vacation travel, and I'm here today to talk to you about how we can save you time, energy, and money on your next trip, whether it's commercial, whether it's group, whether it's family, vacations. Would you have a few minutes to talk with me? And that's it. It's very simple. It's very plain. Or if it's by appointment, if it's a referral call or it's by an appointment, you can see that at the top of the second column on 16. Hi, I'm Mike Archer from Evolution. As we discussed, I'd like to talk to you today about how we can save you time, energy, and money on your upcoming vacation. And that's it. Would you have, what's not in here, and I should have put it in here, is you need to get an agreement on time. And that's when you set we're going to see that next week when we set the agenda. I need to modify the manual to reflect that. Would you have time to about 15 minutes to spend with me? It's really, really important to establish the time element, because they may only have 5 minutes or they may only have 10 minutes, but you need to establish how much time you have to get this done. Then if they only have 5 and you need 15, then you say, you know what? We'll get started and I can get a lot done in 5 minutes, but I really like to set another appointment to come back and talk to you about it some more. Would that be okay? You're always getting their permission to move forward in the process. That's an important part of this. And it's something that as you go along, you will learn this intuitively, but you're always gaining incremental small yeses to keep the process moving forward. Okay. Now, how do we make this happen? That's in the conversational circle. All right. So the conversational circle is simply nothing more than to start the conversation. You either ask a question or they make a statement. If they make a statement, well, if you ask a question, you listen for the statement that they make. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to give them feedback. And we're going to talk about feedback, what types of feedback are appropriate given what kind of answers and responses you get from them. All right. So the conversational circle, I call this the little engine that could. This is your primary vehicle. This is, of all the skills that you're going to be learning, this one is in the top 3. This is how you keep the sales process moving from the beginning to the end, all the way through the sale. All right. What we want to do is there's a thing that we're going to get into a little bit called lock on, lock out. And it's really important. And you need to pay attention to it, because and half the people never put this together. All right. So there is a verbal and a non-support, and there's a verbal and a non-verbal support package that you're going to implement when you're talking with people. Okay. So your verbal support is the words you use, your inflection, you use their names. Be careful with this, because we've all run into people that use our names incessantly, like we forgot what our names were. And they use it like in every sentence or in every other sentence. So just be careful how you use that particular item in your when you're talking to them. The nonverbal is your positive facial expression. You're always keeping a smile on your face and a smile in your voice. And then it's your gestures and your posture. You know, are you alert? Are you attentive? Are you upright? Are you leaning forward, leaning back? Remember, in our backup behaviors, how postures change. You want to make sure that you have a relatively neutral posture, which is straight up and down, nice eye contact. Give yourself a little space between the two of you so that they're comfortable. They don't feel like they're being crowded. And then good eye contact, not boring in, not darting around, but a nice, pleasant, easy eye contact like you're talking to a friend. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things in here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but down below, there's a little part of this support package is something called neurolinguistics. And it's how we process information, and everybody processes information through different areas of the body. There's 3 ways. There's through your eyes, there's through your ears, and then there's through your physical senses. And it's all how we process information. Personally, I am a visual and a kinesthetic, processing through the rest of my senses. That's kinesthetic learning. In order for me to learn something, you cannot try to walk me through it, because my eyes will roll up in the back of my head. You have to get me in front of it. You've got to show it to me, and you've got to let me get my hands on it. That's the only way I'm going to learn. My wife, on the other hand, when I was trying to teach her sales training, because she was helping me in my business, I was trying to show her all this stuff I was doing. And she goes, "No, don't do that. Just tell me. If you tell me, I will remember it." My wife processes through her ears. I don't. My kids are all visual and kinesthetic learners. So Pay attention. How do you learn? That's a really, really good place to start. How do you learn? Now, how do you recognize that in other people? It's it's kind of easy and it's not foolproof, but it's the best way to get a start. And that is watch how they process information when they're thinking. All right. A visual learner will typically thinking they will look up. They might look up and to the right, but no matter what, they will look up. All right. An auditory learner who processes through their ears will look, they'll go sideways, even with their ears. Okay. And a kinesthetic learner who learns through the rest of the senses will usually look down, down and to the right more than not, but will always be looking down. So that's how you can pay attention to how they learn. Now, how do you use that? When you start describing and selling and talking to them about images that you want them to have, if somebody is a visual learner, let's say that we're going to go to Hawaii. So if somebody's a visual learner, you can talk to them. Can't you just see the sun, the bright sun in the sky off the cityscape and off of Diamond Head? Can't you just see the trees swaying in the breeze? And if it's an auditory learning, can't you just hear that wind rustling through the trees? Can't you hear the waves breaking on the beach? Doesn't that sound like something you'd like to be part of? Or if they're a kinesthetic learner, it can be, can't you just feel yourself feeling that the warmth of that sun beating down on you? And can't you just feel that surfboard under your feet as you're trying to learn how to surf? You get the idea. Pay attention to how they process information. And this is part of being versatile. Managing how you talk to them in a way that makes sense to them. This is all part of the package of your versatility. All right. So now let's go on to some of the things that really, really help getting us through this and how you use the conversational circle. The first one's called telling tension. All right. Telling tension is that need we all have to get our story out, and we all have it to some degree or another. Obviously, the right of the line learners, the drivers and the expressives, they're assertive, they are tellers, they like to talk. We amiables and analyticals, we are much more comfortable asking questions and listening for the answers. All right. There's no good or there's no bad in either one of these, because in the initial part of the sales call, we have to be questioners. We've got to find out what they want. And so that's easy for the left of the line people, not so easy for the right of the line. But those roles get reversed as we make our presentation. We now have to do the talking. So our left of the line people, we need to get out of our comfort zones a little bit. The right of the line people they're in hog heaven, because they are now telling the story of what they think the people want to hear, because they presented a really, really good package. So telling tension is that need, though. We all have that need to talk. And how do we balance that? We balance that with the conversational circle so what our task at hand is this. We need to get their story so we can make a presentation. They need to hear our presentation so they can make a decision. So the task at hand is to come to some kind of an even balance. And there's something that comes in called the telling tension is like walking around with a rock in your shoe. You all had it. Nothing happens until you stop, take off your shoe, get that rock out of there, and go back about your business. So telling tension can kick in under a variety of circumstances, and they're all down here on the right-hand side. Anger, defensiveness, enthusiasm, and silence. All right. Telling tension in your behavioral styles, I'll give you a minute for this. But who was likely, what of the four groups, who was likely to go silent when they have telling tension? Now I'll give you 5 seconds. Right, amiables. Remember, they're relationship people. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So what they will do is they will just go quiet, but they want to get their story out. And so you've got to pay attention to that, because they're going to, what's going to happen is this phenomenon called lock on, lock out. All right. Lock on, lock out it's very simple. When somebody has an extreme amount of telling tension, what happens is they have locked on to what they want to say, and they are locking out everything that you're talking to them about, because they don't want to lose the thought. It's very, very important to them. And that's why you need to marry up the lock on, lock out phenomenon with managing telling tension. This is on the test. It's one of the most crucial parts of it being a salesperson, is paying attention to, do you have them, or are they gone someplace? And normally you can see it because their eyes are not on you. Their eyes are someplace else. They might be concentrating. A visual learner, they might be looking up at the ceiling, or the auditory learner might be looking down, might be looking over, at a picture on the wall, or a kinesthetic learner might be looking at his shoes or something on the table. Pay attention to what the eyes are doing. That will help you to figure out, are they lock on, lock out as part of this process. It's very, very critical that you pay attention to this. All right, so there's another thing we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on, but go to MetaTalk. It's over on page 18. MetaTalk is nothing more. Meta is Greek for behind. So it's really what's behind the talk. And you can read all of these on your own, but the ones I want to pay attention to are what we call the verbal erasers. All right, and we've all done it and we've all heard it. I understand what you're telling me, but, all right, the but says, I don't understand what you're telling me. Here's my message. This is what I'm trying to get through to you. But and however are the two main verbal erasers. You might run across a couple of them here and there, a couple more, but the primary ones you're going to hear, and they're blips in the conversation. I hear what you're saying, or I see what you're trying to tell me, but I hear what you're trying to tell me, but I erase it. Here's what's going on. Here's my question. Here's what I need to know. Pay attention to the verbal erasers. There's feigned casualties, false modesty. You can read about all of this. There's two more that I want you to, one, both of these you have to avoid like the plague. One is called pleaders. All right. I'll see what I can do. I'll try my best. People don't want to hear that. You want to hear that from your surgeon or from your dentist? No. You guys, those of you that are old enough to remember the original Star Wars, when Yoda's trying to train Luke and Luke says, I will try, Yoda says, there is no try. There is do or do not. And that's the attitude you have to take. Now, if you don't know something, that's okay. It's okay not to know something, but don't use a pleader to say, I will try. If you don't know, this is when I was learning the yearbook business, I did this every day the first year I was in the business. Somebody would ask me a question. I say, you know what? I haven't got a clue, but I know the people. I can contact the people that do know. And this is way before cell phones and computers. I said, I can get in touch with the people and I can have an answer for you tomorrow. Is that okay? Well, no, we're kind of up on deadline and I need to know now. No problem. Let me call the let me call the technical support people, or let me call the customer service people, and we'll get on the phone on speakerphone and we will both know the answer. And so that's how I handled it. You have to be the same way. You've got your upline that can help you. You've got Jose and Susie in the office. You've got everything you need to know at your fingertips through Archer Travel Service and your upline. So if you don't know something, don't plead and say, I'll try. Say, you know what? I don't know, but let me find out because I know who does have the answer. This is very, very important. The other one is confidence builders. It's down on the bottom of 18. How many times have you gone in to a car salesman or a furniture store or an appliance store, and you're talking to somebody and they go, well, I want to be really honest with you. Well, does that mean that they haven't been honest with you when you've been talking this whole time? Avoid that. Another one is trust me. You cannot use that word trust me, because they're already trusting you by letting you get this far. Remember, the whole point to this is you're trying to earn their trust, and their first decision is not whether they're going to buy from you. Their first decision is, am I going to continue trusting this person enough to continue to listen to them? So those two you got to really avoid like the plague. Now, over on the middle of the second column on 18, there's a little paragraph that starts, always ask yourself two questions. And it's not on the test, but it's a really good way to check how you're doing and what your mental attitude is. The first one is, what impact do I have on other people? And how does my behavior affect them? That will go a long way to helping you self-check to see, what am I doing? And then when you get into your 5 golden minutes after your sales call, and you're asking yourselves those questions, this is where this all can come into play, so that you can gain confidence in yourself. You can improve your selling skills, and it's all right here. So I'm hoping you start to see how all of this starts to come together. All right. Now, the next thing we want to do is, remember, the conversational circle, one of the key pieces is feedback. And feedback is underneath the first paragraph under feedback. I want you to underline, star, cut this out, tape it to your forehead, your mirror, your cell phone. Tape this in. It is up to us to understand and appropriately respond to whatever statements these people are giving us, because what it does, it lets us know that we are listening and that we're understanding what they're telling us. That's the whole purpose of feedback. And it's critical that you use this in the conversational circle. And we're constantly giving each other feedback. We're constant. You can see it down at the bottom: clearing the throat, shifting the body posture, changing facial expression, a question that's really a statement. You don't really mean to imply that I have to do this, right? Well, that's not a question. That's a statement. And if you get something like that, you know that's another blip in the conversation that you need to pay attention to. Interrupting the conversation. These are all forms of verbal and nonverbal feedback. And I've given you the negative ones, but there's positive ones too. Their eyes light up. Their whole body posture changes. They get really excited. Their voice gets more animated. So I've given you the negative ones, but there are other ones too that you need to pay attention to. So here's the kinds of forms of feedback, what to do, and this is all on page 19. Okay, I'm going to go through this, but it's all right here for you. All right, feedback. When somebody makes a positive statement, moves towards your position, says anything you agree with, you want to support that. You want to show, hey, I'm right there with you. Yeah, we're on the same page. Okay. Assurance shows approval. Okay. Whenever they make a request, they move towards your position, or they agree that there is a need. Assurance says, I can do what you're asking me to do. And this is where the I don't know statement comes into play here. Yes, the pleader is not assurance. The pleader is something else. But when you say, I don't know, but I know the people that do, that's assurance. And you're going to find that out. So that's the kind of feedback that you want to really, really generate with these people. All right. Acknowledgement. How many times have you been in a situation where you are the client and you're with a salesperson and you say something that moves away, say, well, I think your price might be a little high. And the salesperson goes, well, I agree, but, and then they try to prove why it's not too high. Okay. That automatically sets up an adversarial relationship. Rather than doing that, a better approach is to just simply acknowledge what they're saying. It shows acceptance. So whenever they say something you don't agree with, they move away from your position, they object to your opinion, or they postpone it. They postpone a decision. It's okay. You just say, hey, you know what? I understand what you're telling me. Let's explore that a little bit. Now, the one thing you cannot do is you cannot show acceptance and then try to talk them out of their position because you don't know what their position is. And I get this answer a lot on the tests is simply acknowledge, but until you know exactly where their issue is, that they're moving away from what you're telling them, that's where you come back with the question. Please share with me what it is that that concerns you about this particular issue. I have a really corny and a really dumb example, but it illustrates the point. Let's say I'm a new travel agent. I'm a new employee of Archer Travel Service, and I've just started. It's the first day, and I'm in on my morning break. And I go into the kitchen, I get a cup of coffee, and Ron Archer walks in. And he's trying to get to know me a little bit. And you know how playful Ron is. But he's deadly serious. He says, you know, I read in Mad Magazine that the moon is made of green cheese. And I read it in Jules Verne, so it's got to be true. And I said, you know, Ron, I think you're right. I think the moon is made of green cheese. Now it's lunchtime. I'm walking in, I make my lunch, and Reggie walks in. And Reggie goes, he's trying to get to know me as well. And he walks in and he says, yeah, he says, you know, I've been reading Science Magazine and Omni Magazine, and I saw this article which says the moon is made of rocks and hard stuff. And I go, you know, Reggie, makes sense to me. I mean, we've been on the moon. I think I've seen those rocks and hard stuff. Now it's the afternoon break, and Reggie and Ron are in there getting a Coke. And Ron goes, you know that Mike Archer, that new guy, I really like him. We were talking this morning, and he agrees with me that the moon is made of green cheese. And Reggie's going to go, well, that dirty, no good so-and-so. At lunchtime, he told me he agreed with me that the moon was made of rocks and hard stuff. Now, how are those two guys going to think of me? The trust is gone. They're going to start looking more closely at me to say, did we really make a good hire here? And I've created a big problem that didn't need to be created. All I had to do with Ron is say, Ron, that's a very interesting position. I'm not sure I can get there with you, but I get it. I understand. Can you tell me why you think it's made of that? Why you trust Mad Magazine as opposed to something else? I'm now trying to find out why he thinks it's made of green cheese rather than agreeing with him. Now at the afternoon break, now I'm on even ground. I'm on solid ground because I didn't put him down, but I didn't agree with him either. And Reggie knows that I believe what he tells me. Like I said, it's a really dumb example, but it tries to get the point across. Acknowledgement is critical, especially when they're moving away from a sale. Okay, the next one is empathy. When you get into a highly charged situation, when somebody is complaining, they're showing a strong negative emotion, they relate a sad or an unfortunate experience, it can get emotionally charged. So you need to pay attention to that. And empathy is a really good way to do that. Oh man, I'm really sorry that happened. Can you go into a little bit more detail? Because I certainly don't want that to happen to you. Man, I'm sorry that you got put in that situation where your credit cards got all screwed up. Can you share with me how that happened? Maybe we can take steps before your trip to make sure that doesn't happen again. There's several things that need to happen. and I can help you make those things happen. So that's how you want to. So empathy is really good. And then finally, this one is really good, especially if you have gone into lock on, lock out, because it's going to happen, especially in a presentation. When you make a presentation, you're going to ask them, excuse me, when you're asking them a question and they're talking about what they want to do, in your mind, you're already starting to figure out, because you know exactly what they need. So rather than listening to what they're saying, you're starting to figure out how you can sell to them, and you haven't heard a thing they've said because now you're in lock on, lock out. Happens all the time. An easy way is to cover yourself is called restatement, and you use it to buy time or to clarify a point or a position or to prevent backup behavior from escalating. Okay. So to buy time is okay. I think I hear you. You want to give that to me one more time just so I'm clear. So you restate, or to clarify a point, says, especially if you've heard what they've said, but you're not really sure you understood it. It's really simple. You go, okay, just so I understand here, what you're telling me is boom, 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 boom. Is that correct? Well, yes, it is. Or no. What I meant was this. So that's what restatement does. It either helps you buy time or it helps clarify your position. It is critical in the conversational circle. Remember, you want to let them know that you're hearing them and that you're understanding what they're telling you. These are the 5 types of feedback that can really, really help you. Okay, so Amanda, we actually got through it without glitches. It worked. Exactly. And before we go, does anybody have anything in the chat room that they'd like to discuss? We're actually pretty good on time. Okay. Anything? Yes. What I am teaching you is the general principles of selling. Jose, Susie, Amanda, anybody in the office, they're the ones that can help you with specific travel questions, visas, credit card stuff, getting on the BDM's list. There's all kinds of stuff that you can sign up for that's travel related. That's not me. All I'm doing is I'm walking you through a general sales program that will give you the principles that you need to sell specifically travel and creating your own downline. This program works across all selling industries. I used it for yearbook. I used it when I was in apartment sales. You can use it for travel. The principles are there. That's what it's for. The travel specific questions, get in touch with the office.
Perfect.
And by the way, they got a brand new office, I think, next week or the week after.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Reggie gave us a sneak peek. We posted that on our socials, so if you guys haven't checked it out, you can check that out. I'm sure we'll be having a new one coming out, so stay tuned. As I'm sure we will. And y'all, if you have any questions, please reach out to Mike. Also, please reach out if it's booking related to Archer Travel. And stay tuned, because next week Mike will be joining us back again live at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Tuesday next week. So don't miss out. Make sure you're here for lesson number 5. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, I'm glad we got through all the glitches. I think we're back on track and we can finish the course on time. So I'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.